All right. And it looks like we are live. Welcome all to this installment of the NAF Research and Tech Talk series. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Nick Minar. I'm the Director of Research and Reporting at NAF. Before we bring out our guests, I just wanted to spend a moment to welcome everyone out there in the audience and say thanks for joining us live. If you've never attended one of these Research and Tech Talks before, that's quite all right. The purpose of these talks, which are hosted roughly every month, is to bring cutting-edge research and best practices to you, our NAF educators, our NAF staff, so that you can use that information to improve your practice and perhaps just get ideas about how to best serve the students that you're serving. Today's talk is special in that it's going to highlight NAF student voice. We'll be talking about the NAF Student Survey Field Guide today. Now, that's a product that's designed to package high-level data, student voice, and recommendations for our educators and our staff into an easily digestible document as a way to view findings from the 2021 NAF Student Survey. Now, as such, if you've never attended these talks before, don't be afraid to ask questions or make comments in the chat throughout the talk. We really do love audience participation, so if you have a burning question that's bubbling up during the course of the talk today, feel free to drop it in the chat, and we're going to do our best to address it. Likewise, we also have some dedicated time at the end of the session today for Q&A. So if you prefer to ask your questions that way, I'll undo the video restriction, undo the mute restriction, so you can feel free to come off mute and on video at that time if you have any questions you'd like to ask us directly. That being said, if you haven't introduced yourself in the chat, feel free to let us know who you are, where you're joining us from today, or what school or organization you're with. We like to create a small learning community in these research and tech talks, so feel free to drop some information in the chat and say hi to everyone else. Just another quick word before we get started. All of these research and tech talks are recorded and posted on social media after they take place. So we will post this talk to NAF's YouTube channel, NAF's educator Facebook page, as well as NAF's Research and Tech LinkedIn page after the event. So if you haven't done so already, please visit our NAF Educator Facebook page, as well as the NAF Research and Tech LinkedIn page, and give us a follow on each of those. I'm going to drop the two links to those in the chat now. So if you want to check them out, you can do so at your leisure. Okay, our guests today are two of NAF's very own. I'd like to first introduce Ms. Tara Bellevue. Tara, if you want to come off video or want to come on video, I'll get you spotlighted here too. Come on in. Ms. Tara Bellevue is NAF's Vice President of Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Access Strategy, or IDEA for short, and is an award-winning education and leadership executive who delivers high-energy and inspirational presentations to help young people thrive. As a little girl from South Carolina, she had big dreams and an adventurous spirit. Tara envisioned herself as a business executive after high school and obtained her Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration. She then went on to pursue a master's degree in secondary education, which opened up a plethora of opportunities that allowed her to shape the minds of young people, becoming an award-winning teacher, administrator, and appointed as the first woman of color to be the president for the Business Teachers Association of New York State. So Tara, thanks very much for being with us today. Let me then introduce our second guest here on the call, Ms. Gloria Jimenez. Let me get you spotlighted as well. Hang on one sec. All right. So Ms. Gloria Jimenez is the manager of work-based learning and currently a member of the curriculum and instruction team here at NAF. Gloria was herself a former NAF educator before joining our team. And as a high school senior, Gloria actually tutored younger students at her school and then went on to work for and eventually lead that same program as a college student. Throughout her career, Gloria's passion for working with under-resourced youth has been really a driving force for her, as she has worked in the U.S. with foster youth and in multiple countries outside the U.S. implementing projects for social change. Gloria, welcome as well. I'm really happy to have the chance to sit down with you and Tara today. Yeah, so let me get what we're going to actually be talking about on screen so our audience can follow along. I'm going to go ahead and share the NAF Student Survey Field Guide. Oh, morning, Colleen from Texas and Brenda from Michigan. Let me get this on. All right, is my screen showing up there okay? Okay. So before we get started really diving into the data today on what NAF students actually said during the 2021 student survey, I just wanted to kind of get us started by putting the NAF student survey field guide on screen for those of us who may be in the audience who maybe haven't seen it before. Now, as you may or may not know, every spring, NAF sends out an annual student survey, which any NAF student can take. It's totally voluntary. And the field guide is really meant to be a helpful tool for our staff, for you as educators, to see and reflect on what students are actually saying about their academy experience, to give them a voice in helping us reflect on their experience. Now, we really mean for this tool to be useful and helpful to our educators as we think about how we can better serve our students. I'm going to be kind of scrolling through that during our talk today, so you'll see me moving all around. I'm going to jump us down here to page 4. I will put a link if you haven't seen this document before, how you can access it. I'll do that sometime in the chat during our talk, and then it'll also be linked to the YouTube video after the talk if you're interested in finding it that way. So just to scroll down here, as you can see from the points of interest page here, we ask students a lot about what's going on in their academy, such as culturally responsive practices. We ask questions about their identity, their beliefs, their mindsets, their attitudes towards work-based learning, and much more. Those are all listed on that points of interest. Now, we won't be having time today to go through this whole field guide, but Tara, Gloria, and I will be focusing on some highlights and then also some points for growth that we just feel are important to discuss in this kind of longer term, long discussion format. But to our audience members, again, feel free to ask any questions while we're going through here, and there will be some dedicated time at the end if you would prefer to ask your question directly. All right, so really quickly, I'm just going to get us started by talking about and showing everyone some data on who actually took this survey. This is going to be our survey responder demographics section of the survey. Now, as you can see from this figure down here on the right, we had over 19,000 NAF students respond to this survey in this past spring, which is by far the highest response rate we ever received when we asked students directly these questions. You can see there's a pretty even split between the 4 grade levels, between freshman, sophomore, junior, senior here in this graph. And then we also have a roughly even split between males and females who responded to this survey, with a little more females responding to this survey than males. And then you can quickly see here on the left, the largest ethnic group responding to this survey was Hispanic Latinx students, which was wonderful to see this year because Hispanic and Latinx students are the largest population we actually serve. Then the second and third highest categories were white and Black and African American students respectively. In the future, I'd like to see a little more responses from Black and African American students, as they are actually the second highest ethnic group that we serve as NAF. But before we dive into the data, let me also show this slide here, where we had students from about 70% of our academies participate in the survey somehow, with the largest academy theme being represented was Academy of Finance, followed by information and technology being kind of the top 2. Lastly, I just wanted to point out, because I would be a poor researcher if I did not, I wanted to point out that about half, a little over half actually, of the responses came from students who are currently in model and model distinguished academies. That's great. We love to see that, but I think in the future, keep that in mind as we go through some of the results, because I would love to see more representative samples from academies of all different kinds of quality levels. But anyway, now that we know who actually responded to the survey, let's dive into some of the results. I'm going to start with the first section of the field guide here for Tara and Gloria and I to discuss, and that section is culturally responsive practices. As you know, as you can see here from the little description in the field guide, NAF really strives to foster environments where the lived experiences and perspectives of students really drive that learning and are key to adult relationships. Just as a quick word of advice, or a quick word on our format, each section of the field guide, so culturally responsive practices, for example, each section has 3 subsections in the field guide. Section 1 presents some data, and that's actually where we're going to start our discussion. Section 2 highlights student voice by pulling out some direct quotes from students, particularly on that section. And then subsection 3 really looks at a summary, and we try to make some concrete recommendations around what to continue, what could potentially be an area for growth. But we're going to start right on this data page here with Tara and Gloria. So Tara and Gloria, go ahead and come off mute and let's start our discussion. We can kind of see in this first initial data page, we have what's called a featured data point here on the right. And what this featured data point really says is that 84% of students that responded to the survey said that all students in their academy are treated fairly, regardless of race or ethnicity. Now, that's really great to hear, and it's definitely an environment that NAF wants to achieve within our academies. But we did notice, however, when we actually broke down the data by responder ethnicity, this is why it was a featured data point, we saw that Black and African American students responded positively about 5 percentage points under the average of students of other ethnicities. So Tara and Gloria, do you see something from your experiences that can either help us, NAF, or our NAF educators help address this disparity? How can we ensure that students are being treated fairly within their academy walls?
So very excited to see this, and just amazed at how much we have evolved with our student survey. And this field guide is just an amazing resource and tool that we'll be able to continue to utilize over time and continue to develop in positive ways. One thing that really pops out for me is really something that I say all the time is that educators have the ability to be able to impact students, and it is our job as support staff and other individuals in the community to be able to lean in and to be advocates and to support them and provide them with the resources. And this really speaks to the idea of a real sense of belonging and really understanding young people. I know for myself, I always remember there would always be this one teacher, maybe 2, that would have all of the students in the class, in the class with them before school, after school, during class, highly engaged. And it's the opportunity to be able to center on them and their experiences, and then helping to guide them along in the process. So one, for all the educators that are on and that may listen to this later, continue to do the things that you do by being very inclusive, doors to this type of experience, and anchoring in on the students and the students' actual experience and what they bring to the table.
Mm-hmm. We'll actually go to some data a little later about the importance and the connection that students felt with teachers. So I love that you were already prefacing that a little bit. But Gloria, any thoughts from you on this point? You know, how can we really ensure that students of all races and all ethnicities feel welcome in a school environment?
Well, what I always like to begin the year with when I was receiving a new cohort of students was just a little mini survey that, where I asked them, just a bunch of questions just to get to know them on a deeper level, like, do you celebrate any special holidays? What's your favorite candy? Just things that would help me connect with my students a little bit more. And I think it's all about asking questions in the classroom and allowing them the opportunity to share about themselves, about their culture. And, it's always more enriching. It's always a more connected, unified classroom when there's that opportunity to not just focus on the content, which is super important, but also give them that opportunity to talk about themselves. And they love that. They love that. And it's fun for teachers to get to know, the where their learners are coming from.
Absolutely. I think that's an important dimension of the teacher-student relationship that is worth pointing out. And in fact, on this first data point here on the left, you can see that about 2/3 of students, about 75%, said their teachers actually make an effort to get to know them as a person. So really speaking to both of what you both were saying, just making that personal connection and, making sure teachers and educators see their students as people and trying to improve their learning, their environment forward. Going to another point there on the left, as you can see from the bottom point there, more than half of the NAF students who responded indicated that their teachers teach in a way that relates to their cultures and experiences. And Tara, this was something you were saying was very, very important, because we know really from academic research that culturally responsive practices can really help students feel welcome, can make them feel engaged in their learning. Would you recommend anything to our educators or other professionals perhaps struggling to implement a culturally responsive practice or a culturally responsive pedagogy in their classroom or in their setting? Have you found anything in particular there to be successful?
I think that one of the many ways I think that we have the opportunity and the responsibility as educators is to be able to take a closer look at ourselves and how we show up in the space. And I know that over the course of the last few years, NAF has really been making a concerted effort around culturally responsive education, as well as diversity in education and equity in education. We've done several NAF Next sessions that have focused on that topic, and we've done some webinar series. And what comes to mind here is that being able to, as an educator, being able to spend some time focusing on understanding your bias and how it shows up, where there are microaggressions that take front and center in our classrooms, and how to eliminate those. And to Gloria's point, really about being able to bring student voice fully into the classroom, whether that's an activity that actually asks poignant questions, calendaring or putting it on our calendar or scheduling times to be able to celebrate diversity in the classroom and in life experiences, as well as making sure that students take ownership or have the opportunity to take ownership of assignments and activities and experiences to help guide the learning.
Absolutely. I love that ownership piece. Yeah, that's a really good engagement tool for sure. Gloria, do you have any thoughts you'd like to add?
No, I think that was great. That was right on point. Assessing yourself and then assessing your students, your learners. And I suggested something very small, which is, I think, very impactful, which is just doing a survey at the beginning of the year and asking some questions to get to know your students on a deeper level. Wonderful.
That middle point here I have here on the left says that 58% of students said their teachers do acknowledge their own cultural influences and their own biases in the classroom. So already there's a lot of great work towards this end. Of course, we want to see that number 100%, but I think steady progress is the way we'll be going here. Any kind of last thoughts on culturally responsive practices before I maybe pivot us over to a different section so we can see what students are saying?
Very good.
Feel free, remember those in the audience in the chat, if you have any questions you'd like our two experts here to answer, we can try to formulate a good answer for you. As well, we will have some time here at the end for question and answer. But if there's no questions currently, I'm going to go ahead and move us forward to the next survey section here. We'll kind of skim by the quotes and some of the summary stuff we had here in the guide, and our audience can read that at their own leisure. But I was going to pivot us over to students' identity, beliefs, and mindset. So kind of the questions we're asking them about how they currently feel in their academy experiences or their output on learning in general, life in general. So when I scroll us down here, moving to student identity, beliefs, and mindsets, we can see again from the featured data point there on the right that only about 33% of students, about a third of students, indicated that they are close or very close to their future selves, that kind of ideal future self that they're envisioning and working towards. So while this percentage did actually increase from last year, it was slightly higher than it was last year, this really indicated to me that students still have a lot of growing they want to do and self-discovery they want to do. Gloria and Tara, from your experience, what can educators really do or keep in mind to try to help their students grow as the individuals they eventually want to become?
I would say like exposing them to all the options there are out there in terms of career and college, letting them see a world of opportunities and making those things tangible by doing work-based activities, bringing in speakers that, you know, or engineers, or going on a tour of a company if that's accessible to you. Because we've heard this so many times, like you can't be what you can't see. And so many times students aren't exposed to what does an engineer do? What is it like to work in IT? So I think letting them helping them connect the dots between what they're learning in the classroom to, you know, how can that translate into a career? I think that's going to help them a lot. Maybe establish some goals. Goals are key when you're developing your own personal growth and your identity. So I think that work-based learning part is such a key to helping them identify what it is they want, and then actually making that more concrete with goals. And okay, now I know what I need to do to get to, you know, wherever it is I'm headed.
Yeah, it helps to demystify it too, right? It's not some mountain that can't be conquered. College is not a high-wage, high-skilled career. It's no longer mystified, right? They have experience talking to people who have gone onto that path and, you know, kind of getting a whole bunch of different perspectives. Yeah, so it's no longer something they don't know about. Now they have a clear pathway. So
Right.
I like what you were saying about goals along the line.
And I think sadly, a lot of our students, many of our NAF students cannot look to their family, cannot look to their own social circle to demystify what is college, because they're first generation students like I was.
Absolutely.
And my parents couldn't tell me, you know, actually my dad discouraged my oldest brother from going to college, and he had this very machista mentality and said, well, why are you going to study some more? You just spent I don't know how many years studying, and you should be out there working and helping provide for the family. And it was definitely a challenging time for my brother. He paved the way. He went on to Pomona College. He went on to Stanford. He's a doctor.
Nice.
He's giving back to the community. And he really broke down those barriers for my family. And luckily I had him as a guide. I also was in this incredible full scholarship program to USC while I was in high school. So there was school between my brother and school. There really was no other option than to go to college, then to, you know, grow professionally and personally. It was just something that was already destined to be.
And I think that's something students and educators should tap into more. Sorry, Tara, I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
No, I was just, Gloria, just the way your face lit up when you talked about your brother, I really felt and understood exactly where you were coming from. And it really resonated with me around the idea of, especially when we're talking about our ideal and our future self, is that we have, as educators, we have to help develop those self-advocacy skills. So you had that image of your brother, thankfully, and some of us don't have the older sibling, or we are the older sibling that's trying to navigate the space. And it is, as educators, it gives us the opportunity to help develop those self-advocacy skills to help navigate what their future can be, and knowing that they have the power, and just showing them, not empowering them because they actually already have it, but showing them how to activate that in a space and be able to dictate where they will go. And so when we can continue to give them examples, representation, opportunities to be able to put that into practice, it only builds that so much more, and actually builds the variety of transferable skills that they'll be able to utilize, and regardless of what career pathway they end up taking.
I love that. I was just reminding our audience really quickly, if anything's bubbling to the surface, feel free to shoot it our way. Otherwise, we'll just kind of continue the conversation around some of these data points and some of these great insights that Gloria and Tara are throwing out here for everyone. I wanted to talk really quickly about a point here on the left. A couple of them actually relate to what's called growth mindset. Now, if you haven't heard that term before in the audience, it's really a growth mindset describes the outlook of an individual as being reflective of their intellectual abilities can grow over time in response to new challenges. This is contrasted by the opposite, which is called a fixed mindset. And that's an outlook where more a person believes their intellectual abilities are fixed and really can't be improved through new challenges, through hard work, intellectual ability being kind of fixed. I think Gloria and Tara, we would like all of our NAF students to have a growth mindset and believe that their intellectual abilities can be improved through hard work. But how can we help educators kind of foster this mindset? That a new challenge is not insurmountable, like you were saying, but it's something that we can learn and grow and tackle.
Well, as a programming teacher in a NAF academy, I was very vulnerable with my students in terms of, hey guys, that we're stuck as a class. We have this project that we're trying to do. We are at kind of at a roadblock. We've hit our head against the wall. Let's work through it. Let's find a way. And I would always put myself in that situation because I was willing to take a risk and try something new with my students. So I would spend a lot of time looking for things, looking for projects. And many times those projects that I found or that were interesting or that I created myself, I didn't exactly know the solution. I didn't exactly know how to get to the end result. And it was just me trying to show the students, model for the students that it's okay that, you don't have the answers at the moment. So trying to teach them resiliency was such an important skill I was trying to pass on to my students, because that's a big part of growth mindset, that you're not born brilliant in computer science, that's something that you develop and you grow over time, and it may never get very easy for you. It may never come as easy as it would to other students. So I think that's one thing that I can offer to the listeners that maybe they're already doing. Maybe they're already being vulnerable with their students, and I encourage more of that because it will help students develop that growth mindset.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Tara, how about you?
Yeah, exactly. I love the idea of vulnerability. I know that as an educator, oftentimes I would look for those teachable moments. And for me, it could be, taking the subway and seeing a newspaper article and something sparking. Okay, I'm bringing that to the classroom, and now let's all kind of figure this out. This happened on the news. So being able to have that opportunity and experience and to show how I can show up in this space and how they can show up in this space. But most importantly for me was really about creating a brave space to be able to have those courageous conversations, or setting the tone for failing forward, or acknowledging in every instance and experience that we had, what were the glow moments and then what were the grow moments, and being clear about the lessons learned here, and that this is an opportunity for us all to learn something different. I would give examples about tests that I have given, or projects that I've given every year, and why it was important for me to always to take a look back to see what others thought of the experience and how we can make it better, and so that we could evolve together as a class or as an experience. So for me, the big things is really around creating a brave space for those courageous conversations, setting the stage for being able to fail forward in this experience, because we're not going to always get it right, but we can always do it if we're kind of coming together to talk about it and acknowledging where we've done some things great and where there's some opportunities for us to be able to grow and develop.
Absolutely. I think being intentional about that is really key, because a lot of people may assume the classroom is a safe space, but yeah, being intentional, talking about it, saying this is a place where you can fail and still learn, all of that I think is worth articulating to educators, to the students. Yeah, for sure. So I love that. I love that comment. Go ahead, Gloria.
I just wanted to add, I know our NAF network, and Tara, I'm sure, has experienced this a lot, where students say things like, oh, but this person is just, he got an A or she got an A because they're just smart at this. They're, they just were born with whatever skill or whatever knowledge. And I think helping reframe that for students is really important, in saying, well, it was more hard work. It was more that they spent a lot of time on it, that they they went to tutoring, they asked more questions, and helping the students see that it's more about hard work than intelligence, and being born with some innate quality that they can actually develop their learning, their knowledge.
Absolutely. And I think there's actually research out there that when teachers actually adopt a growth mindset for their students, students are more likely to feel a growth mindset, or more likely to excel for those very reasons you just mentioned, right? A teacher could say, oh, that person got an A because they studied really hard, and kind of put it forward like that. Oh, actually, we have an audience question. From Ms. Brenda Belcher. She's curious about how African American and Black students responded to the growth mindset question. Did we find the percentages were higher or lower, specific to hard work and meet goals? That's a really good question, Brenda, and we didn't actually break it down here in the field guide. But that is something we could either look at, or this is a perfect time to mention, if an academy had over 10 students take the survey, they can see their own student survey data for their own students. So that's something, an academy or a district or a set of academies may be able to look into a little further. But I apologize, I didn't actually do that for this particular document here, so I don't have those data off the top of my head. But that's a very good question, and an important one. But let me scroll us forward a little bit, because time is going by pretty quick here. I'm going to get us over.
Nick,
yeah, go ahead.
Nick, as you're scrolling forward, I will just share with Brenda. I've actually seen a little bit of research around the tenements of white supremacy, and around being careful about when we reference working hard. So understanding how that shows up in different cultures and what does that really mean. So that there's an opportunity there to delve a little bit deeper in terms of how the terminology and how it's utilized and how it shows up in different cultures and different experiences. So this is I think this is something that we have the opportunity to delve a little deeper in to understand and the connections there.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely something we want to be sensitive to, and help interested educators be sensitive to as well. So very teachable moment there. I'm scrolling forward to the section called Attitudes Towards Work-Based Learning, because as you both know, and everyone in the audience knows, work-based learning is really a key pillar of the NAF educational design. So let me scroll forward here. Let me make sure I'm on the right page. Okay, yes. Oh, sorry, this is Attitudes Towards School itself. One more section, Attitudes Towards Work-Based Learning. So what we can see here on kind of that, again, that featured data point here on the right is that we heard from students during the 2020-2021 school year, about 72% of students indicated that they participated in primarily work-based learning opportunities. This should really be no surprise, right? Because a lot of schools were either fully virtual or hybrid, and really the only way to provide a work-based learning opportunity may have been online. About 50% of students who completed an internship said that internship was fully virtual. I wanted to spend some time on this because it seems like, the virtual work-based learning space is becoming increasingly important in this COVID and probably post-COVID era. So what is it important for us to take away from what students are saying? How can we kind of try to help accommodate this shift to a virtual work-based learning environment for our educators, for our students?
Well, I was going to say that 72% is pretty, that our NAF network is like pushing through and working hard to get those resources to our students. I think we can, I can offer one small tip, which is help to use your network to help you find those opportunities. So I think, like, I know the burden is high on our educators to find these resources. And I think it's just, if you position yourself in a way so that those opportunities can be naturally flowing your way. So, I had, especially through the advisory board, when I would go to the meetings, I would be tapped into those resources. I would connect with the educators on that were also fellow NAF academies, and we would share resources. So that kind of took the burden off of me a little bit to go out. And even though I still found myself doing this, I still invested a lot of time in looking for resources. But I think once you establish your community of educators, then this becomes more achievable and easier to implement.
Yeah, so really tapping into that existing network of the advisory board. Great suggestion. Tara, how about you? Do you have any thoughts?
Absolutely. I would definitely say leveraging those partnerships and those opportunities, whether they're local or virtual. I would love to take a step back though and just think about, we have virtual versus in-person learning opportunities. And I say the opportunity piece that COVID has provided for us has been immense, especially from being in education now for several decades. And I remember there were districts and or individuals that would say, we can't do virtual internships. You can't do that. So we were always putting ourselves in the box. So now that we're outside of the box, know that it's not an either or I have to make a choice, but an and. So this becomes a clear opportunity to be able to evolve into a space that, as we evolve and scaffold these experiences, scaffold them more in the virtual space, and then really be able to prepare them for that in-person experience, and knowing that we have the opportunity to give many young people their first experience. We give them the opportunity to have their first interview, their first interaction with an individual who in a profession that they may aspire to be a part of, the first internship experience, the first part-time job. So in that land of first and that brave space that we've created, and we can be a little bit more vulnerable in those opportunities, now we get to shape where we're going in this experience and use it to our advantage. Phone a friend, call a friend, open up the NAF network. You have a national network that's available to you. Tap into that. Maybe you met somebody at NAF Next and they had an experience around part-time jobs. I think about like up in Western New York, Clarence High School and Hamburg High School, really great with turning over and converting those part-time internships, part-time job experiences into a solid internship experience. Call your friends over in California, Palo Alto. They're starting their new program. They're trying to figure that out. Start to have those conversations, and this is a great way to be able to do that in a virtual setting and connect across the nation.
I love that. Be a trailblazer, take the initiative. I love that. Stephanie is saying, I agree that COVID has presented some new opportunities, especially for students who may not have as much access, right, to in-person opportunities. How do we think that NAF could better support, prepare employers and students for a virtual work-based learning experience? That's a great question. So really in that preparation, how can we help either students directly or educators prepare their students a little better? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we're definitely developing resources to help schools be able to do that. I think our vision is we have a future ready engineers program, and our vision isn't always to run that by ourselves, to have us be the leaders. We're hoping to pass it on and for districts to take that ownership. So I think as an organization, we're already thinking along those lines. We're already doing some of that work to kind of hand it over and help support the work that's happening locally.
Mm-hmm.
And
go ahead, Tara.
No, I would just love to piggyback off of that, because I think about all of the different ways that, as our partners have naturally run their businesses. So we think about consultants, we think about the gig economy, and all of these experiences, and being able to bring that into the classroom. So if they're guest speaking or volunteering for one of our experiences inside of our classroom experiences, they're utilizing that technology, they're introducing that technology, they're talking about their experiences because this is what they've done. So students are having the opportunity to be able to practice working remotely and virtually earlier and earlier. And knowing that if we have children that are in elementary school, they're getting that experience now. So just think about how much more efficient they will be and how they'll be able to evolve the process. I think about like Verizon, they have a volunteer experience, and most of their headquarters are based in, some larger metropolitan areas. So in this particular case, the volunteer experience actually was able to connect individuals who were working in New Jersey, in that Baskin Ridge location in New Jersey, with students in Charlotte, North Carolina. And then they developed a solid bond, and that local relationship was able to be built based upon the national, and vice versa. Local relationships that help be able to build a more national connection. So being able to leverage those partnerships and those relationships and the technology that we have, that's how we're going to be able to do it. And we're going to do it by each being able to tell the stories and build pride in those experiences across the nation.
And talk about an opportunity that hadn't been present before a virtual internship, right? Students from New Jersey connecting with students from, you said North Carolina, right? Yeah, I mean, I don't think that would have been a priority prior to the pandemic or a virtual internship. We did have, to this point, we did have some data on this, on how students actually felt prepared for an internship. It was the featured data point on the next slide. But about 2/3 of students, 66%, that had an internship said they felt fully prepared for that internship. And when we asked that question last year before the pandemic, it was only at 69. So I think it did take a little bit of a dip, but not significantly so. Obviously, we would want every student that has an internship to feel fully prepared, but I was encouraged to see that 2/3 already feel prepared. And then hearing about some of those resources you mentioned, Gloria, I think the number's even going to go up. So I'm looking forward to that. It looks like we may have some questions coming in. We're actually we didn't get quite through as much as I had hoped for, but I want to go ahead and be sure to open it up to our audience. So let's, after we address Bradley's question here. Yeah, go ahead, Gloria.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and say that we do have a number of resources on planning virtual internships on the NAF.org website. So please head over there if you're looking for more resources. And if you don't find what you need, we can definitely help work one-on-one with you.
Yes, definitely. And at the end of our session today, Gloria and Tara will be hooking you up with their contact info if you don't have it, so that you can always reach out to us afterwards. But let's see, Bradley is saying, while we greatly appreciate in-person learning and the hands-on experiences it provides, The virtual has provided a much larger network of availability to have more students participate over a distance, right? So alleviating that need for difficult logistics such as transportation, that can definitely be a barrier for many students. We have a number of opportunities come up with organizations that also partner with industry to provide larger scale opportunities and experiences. Now WorkEd. It's one relationship, Bradley says, that they've been very beneficial to have and provide kind of mini internships across sectors. I wonder if, Bradley, would it be all right if I brought you off mute? I'm curious to hear what a mini internship is. Is that okay if we're at the Q&A part anyway, so I'm just going to go ahead and open up the mic and the cameras for everybody. So curious to hear your thoughts. Bradley, it looks like you got your hand up. You should have the option to come off of mute now, so go ahead and hit that mute button or unmute button.
Yeah, good morning. Can you hear
good morning.
me?
We can, yes.
Perfect. So I was just going to mention, so I'm with President Unified. We're a large district, about 74,000 kids, right? And we just, over the summer, had great experiences with this group that was called Experience. Now it's called WorkEd. And what they do is they partner with a number of different industry partners, and they bring them online to say, hey, across sectors, what are things that your students are interested in? And working with them, they just had such a wide network, right, of individuals to be able to connect to. And so these mini internships, what they had, the kind of week-long experiences that we set up with them with different student groups, right? And students could sign up based on what they were interested in. So whether it was cybersecurity, now we're working on an aviation pathway, transportation, all these different sectors that they could bring us in with, health, right? All these different pieces. So it was really valuable for our kids. And they have a really great working model, engaging individuals that are there, getting kids fired up, checking with them. And then, it's just their structures are really impressed. So as far as resources go, sometimes it's nice to find someone who's done it and done it well, right? To be able to start there and then say, okay, let me build out a model, perhaps even in-house, right? That kind of models some of those pieces that some of these groups are doing. And we actually have an ongoing partnership with them now that we're utilizing ongoingly. So just, again, as we look at if it helps anybody else to have some of those resources, right, to be able to say, hey, who's somebody that I can talk to? And they're just a great group of individuals looking to help people. So anyway, just thought I'd give them a little shout out there.
That's a great shout out. Thank you. We did not ask Bradley to do that ahead of time, but that was a wonderful share out. Thank you very much. Yeah, does anyone else in our audience thoughts or questions? I know we didn't get through as much of the field guide as I originally wanted, but we were having great discussions along the way, so I wanted to be sure to open it up if anyone had any questions. Otherwise, I'll throw another question towards Tara and Gloria. All right, well, keep us in mind then. I wanted to scroll back one page here. We asked students who didn't actually get an internship, so they indicated in the survey they had no internship this past year, why they didn't get an internship or why they didn't perhaps pursue an opportunity like that. And there were numerous reasons, right? Maybe they didn't have time, maybe they didn't have capacity outside of family obligations, for example. But about 51% of students that did not participate in either an internship or just general work-based learning opportunities said the main reason they didn't is because they weren't aware of such opportunities. So we tried to go into some suggestion mode in the field guide for this, but Tara and Gloria, how can we really help students and our educators see that there are a lot of opportunities out there? Have you found a way to kind of share that information out, or have others share that information out that's been successful for you in the past? What are your thoughts there, or anyone in the audience if you have something you'd like to say on that?
Well, I'll start with just from something that NAF has been doing, and I think that we've been doing a very good job, and we're continuing to evolve and get better, and that was the Career Insider. So that was a great opportunity for the newsletter to go out to not just for NAF current students and NAF alumni with opportunities for internships, part-time jobs, entry-level positions, as well as some trends that were occurring. We're continuing to evolve that. and develop that. And that really has been a great resource. And as I said before, you know, if we really want to impact young people, the best way to be able to do that is to connect with their educators. And I came to NAF because I wanted to be a resource for educators, because I knew what it was like to be on the other side. And I knew that NAF had such a large network that I could bring some of those resources to bear. Remember that a part of being a part of the NAF network has its added benefits. One being the portfolio manager. So being connected to your portfolio manager is important, and to keep that line of communication open. In the same token, we have our work-based learning and our corporate engagement and relationship team, who also have targeted individuals who are supporting the work that we're doing. So keeping the lines of communication open, being able to be clear about these opportunities, and checking out our social media platforms, because there are a lot of opportunities that are presented there. And any opportunity where you say, hey, we have this exciting opportunity, but maybe we need some guidance, as Gloria referenced to our virtual internship guidebook. That's another great resource to be able to help guide that. Our advisory board guidebook is another way to be able to connect that. And or just to have the conversations. Reach out to any of us. Anyone on the NAF staff can point you in the right direction, but utilize us because we're a great resource.
Yeah. Admittedly, I have to do that a lot. Like, I don't know the answer to that question, but I know someone who does, and that's when I would connect someone to you or to Gloria. Yeah. Gloria, do you have any thoughts you'd like to add there?
No, I think Tara said it perfectly. Using your network, using your existing resources, not trying to reinvent the wheel. If you're trying to develop a virtual internship, someone has done that before, so you do not have to start from scratch. So yeah, reaching out to us, finding those communities in your area that are going to help bring those opportunities to you, so you don't have to work as hard trying to find those opportunities.
Mm-hmm. For anyone in the audience, have you felt any kinds of activities to be particularly beneficial on getting those students informed about those work-based learning opportunities or connecting with other folks around there? Interested to hear your thoughts or comments if you want to either type them in the chat or come off mute, whichever you feel most comfortable. I guess we only have about 5 minutes left, so I do want to get us out of here on time, but let me perhaps share one more quick data point, and then, unless there are other questions from the audience, otherwise I'll just kind of scroll down to a different section here in the field guide, and that's one that I think most people are interested in. That's post-graduation plans for those NAF students and what they said they were going to be doing. A really great data point, the first one here on the left, was about 90% of the survey responders indicated that they planned to continue on to college that fall semester. So it would be right now after graduation. But as part of trying to dig a little deeper into the data, we did notice that postgraduate plans were not, they changed as a function of who was actually responding to that question. So for example, we saw that our female students were planning to go on to college at a slightly higher rate than our male students. And just to quickly kind of pivot again, when we looked at 2-year versus 4-year colleges, we actually saw differences between white students and students of color. So this is just some of the insights we were trying to break down for our educators so that you're aware that this is how our students are responding. Tara and Gloria, is there anything, I know we're kind of short on time, but is there anything we can be doing to help students, to help educators try to shrink these discrepancies, either with extending students of color to 4-year colleges or all students do 4-year colleges? What do you see as kind of something you'd like to pitch here in our last 5 minutes?
I would say very quickly that I want to concentrate on the post-secondary graduation plans, and those plans can vary for a variety of different reasons. And being clear that NAF is working concertedly with not only with post-secondary institutions, but also our employers and our partners, because you can't get to, in most careers, you can't get to one without the other or a combination. And as I've been having some greater conversations with employers around the talent pipeline development, there's some interesting things that are coming forward. So the certifications are very important and they show up. the transferable skills and how you are able to illustrate those transferable skills are very important. And understanding that many employers, and as we look to career pathways, are willing to be in the process together with the student. So not just, I'm going to enter college, I'm going to study, engineering, and not have an opportunity to build that into the educational career prospect together. So it's very exciting to know that partners like RTX are saying, we want to be able to endorse and support young men of color, women of color in these career pathways, and we're willing to help at the high school level through college as we employ and develop those technical skills as well.
Absolutely. Gloria, any thoughts here?
No, I think Tara did a great job.
Okay. We're more or less out of time. I promised our speakers I'd get them out of here on time, but I did want to just re-articulate. There's a link to the field guide in the survey or in the chat here if you haven't seen it. You can also find it on ash.org, our Ash platform. And I would welcome folks at the very end of the field guide. There's a link where, as I mentioned, if you had more than 10 students in your academy or set of academies take the survey, you can actually pull up their individual results so you can see how your students are responding. The field guide is more of a kind of national overview, but if you're interested in your academy's data, we provide that as long as you have 10 students participate. I would also invite folks who are looking at the field guide. On the right, there's also a link to a survey. What would you like to see in the future in this field guide? We're constantly trying to think about how to make it more useful to you, our educators, to our staff. So I would encourage you to take 5 minutes to fill out that survey as well and let us know your thoughts on how we could help you reflect on your data even better. But yeah, we didn't get through quite as much as I would have hoped, but it was still a really rich discussion. Tara and Gloria, how can folks in the audience or folks who view this video afterwards, how can they get in touch with you if they have follow-up questions or want to hone in on some of those resources you mentioned throughout the talk today?
My email is jjimenez@naf.org, and my Twitter handle is Gloria_Elena, ELENA. I'll put it in the chat as well.
Okay. And I'll also post it to the description of the video as well. Yeah, go ahead, Tara.
No, I was just going to say, also, you can drop me an email at tbellevue@naf.org, and I am fairly active on LinkedIn, so please connect with me on LinkedIn, and let's keep this conversation going. Thank you, Nick, so much for grounding us in this conversation and all the work that you're doing to provide us such rich resources, and remembering the fact that we are doing this together. So we came into this to be able to make sure that we have rich opportunities for young people, and we'll be able to do that. If we want to go far, we go. If we want to go fast, we go alone. But to go together, we'll go much farther. So thank you.
Well put. I wish I had budgeted more time for us, frankly. It seemed like the hour flew by. But yes, thank you again, both Tara and Gloria, and to our audience, as well as anyone who may be watching after the fact. Be sure to download the field guide for your own purposes and to see your own students' data. And keep an ear out for our next Research and Tech Talk, which has yet to be, the details aren't finalized yet, but we'll be keeping everyone updated when they are finalized. And right at time, let's call it a wrap. Thank you both, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.